start at 6 o'clock. All right, y'all stand. Let me say a prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, I just ask that you be with us this evening as we go through the day and try to make the best decisions possible for the school district, Lord, the kids and staff and everybody involved, Lord. Just ask for your guidance, ask for your protection over all the kids and staff for the remainder of the school year, Lord. Just continue to be with them and keep them safe. All these things I ask and pray in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
All right, Mr. Hine, you want to go over the first report?
Do you want to open, or do we need
It's first on the agenda. Or do you want to go ahead and do recognize?
do you want to open the public forum and then we close the public forum?
Okay.
No, it's just you declare it open at a time.
Okay. We're going to open public forum on the first integrity rating report.
6:02.
6:02.
So in your packets, there is the first financial integrity rating systems of Texas. We are required to do a report on it. There are two documents included. The disclosure statement has a list of the superintendent's contract and then everything that we paid for y'all, for like when you went places and we paid for meals or any travel or anything. That's compiled by my office. So that's the disclosure statement. And then also there is the actual first rating. We did 98 out of 100 points this year. Well, okay, so I didn't actually print the screen with the first rating. Apparently I printed the screen with just a list of districts on it. My bad.
All right.
We did 98 out of 100 points. The only thing we got dinged on was our debt to assets ratio, which we will always get dinged on. We didn't, if you remember last year, we had like 92 to 100, so we didn't even get dinged as much this year because we have a little less debt. So we dropped into another threshold. They're going to change the ratings a little bit next year, so I don't know what to anticipate for next year yet, but for now we rated to almost as high as we could, so I'm pretty happy about that. Any questions on that, or any questions from the public on our financial ratings?
Okay.
You want to close our?
I will close the first rating at 6:03.
6:03.
We'll do public forums. Everybody signed up? Okay. And we'll do recognition of guests. All right. Who has somebody to recognize? Mrs. Carr? I was looking for Gina. Sorry.
Yeah, she's not here today. So I invited all of our students that participated in UIL in December. On December 9th, our students competed in UIL at Frank Phillips College. We had 56 kids at the junior high level compete in UIL. I have a couple of them that came tonight, so I'm going to ask them to stand up if they don't mind. Do the back of those if you can.
And who are they?
This is Samantha Schick, and she's in 6th grade. Samantha, can you tell them what event you competed in?
I competed in listening skills and
Okay, and so Samantha actually placed 3rd in listening skills, so she's got a medal for that. Then here we have Sydney Riggle. What did you compete in, Sydney?
I competed in listening skills.
And Sydney placed 2nd in listening skills. And then we have Willow Sylvie,
I competed in oral reading.
and she placed 2nd in oral reading. And then back here we have Garrett Hopkins. in music memory. So overall, I think that they did a really good job. I did put in my board report, there's a complete list of the kids that competed and placed, so that's in there.
Can we get y'all to come up to the front with Mrs. Carr and have a picture?
All right, I brought and invited my 3 perfect attendance from the first semester students. First, I'll have Tatum Michaels. Tatum's a senior, and she's very active in academics, so plays girls basketball. Quentin Cruz, he's also very active college academics, baseball, basketball. I think he's going to play golf too. Yeah. And then the very quiet, but also very studious Darren Lovato. I don't think I've heard him say 5 words all semester, but I did want to give him some recognition because he's a good kid and does everything that we ask of him. So. And I called his mom to make sure he'd show up because I wasn't.
Okay, Coach Wiggins, do you have anybody?
No, sir, I
Okay.
did not. We're in the middle of basketball.
So, Mr. Vanderpool, you want to have a picture quick?
Sure.
You stand here.
Sarah, did you want to get a picture with
Yeah.
the junior high?
Is that, yes,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Okay. Could the junior high UIL kids come back up?
I didn't invite.
Thank you.
Okay, so is that everybody? Okay, well, good job. Y'all did great. We appreciate that you went out and represented our school very well, and congratulations on your accomplishment. We're going to go into our meeting. If y'all want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay and listen to it. If you don't want to stay, y'all are more than welcome to leave. Yeah, it's pretty good. You should stay. All right, let's start with new business on the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions?
I just have one clarification. We
Okay.
mentioned this donation last week, but it wasn't actually on the agenda, so that's why it's on the agenda this week,
Okay,
or month.
One for Target.
for Tarzan.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Doug, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Logan, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed, the motion carries. All right. On the regular agenda, discuss possible actions on additions, revisions, deletions of local policies resulting from the policy review session conducted on November 9th, or 9/10/2022, with drafts prepared by the district policy consultant. Mr. Hines.
So as you're aware, we had TASB come in and do a consulting with us on all of our policies. And these are the changes that they recommended. That there is one that I'm going to recommend that you don't approve. And then if you want, we can just go through all of them, or we can just go through ones you have questions on. It's up to you how you want to do it. It probably won't take that long to go through all of them if you want to. It's up to
We
you.
can do it real quick.
Okay, so like on this very first one, it's just revising the mission statement to match what our current mission statement is. The next page. Should have hooked up the mouse. No, it's scrolling for me. Okay, so the next page, since we vary when we have our meetings throughout the month, okay, arrow keys, that works. Sorry. Since we vary when we have our meetings throughout the month, she suggested changing that. And then this was, she got from the meeting with y'all when you should have agenda items to us. So that was the reason for those changes. If we move on to, and just stop me anytime you have questions, BQA local. This is about the district level committee. She asked, how it was done, and so these are the changes that TASB recommended. Some of the changes are because of how we do things locally. Some of the changes are because laws have changed since we've done the policies. So this just spells how the district committee is done, how it's elected, who serves, are the things that she really changed. Changed it from a 3-year term to a 2-year term, and then got rid of some extraneous stuff that you guys have the permission to do already. You didn't need it in a policy telling you you have permission. Then on blank pages, BQB is the campus level committees. It's the exact same thing, just at the campus level. So once again, goes through, spells out how those committees are formed, who's going to be on the committees. Changes it from a 3-year term to a 2-year term. Then CCGA, this matches the way that our taxes actually work. Currently, we don't, I know when you pay your property taxes, you get a discount for paying early, but that's not, you don't get a discount on the school, you get a discount on the county rate. So there is no discount on the school rate. And then they do allow, by law, they have to allow senior citizens to do split payments in the year. So that this wording matches the way our taxes are actually collected. And CDC local just defines, so the policy didn't match the way we were doing it. We bring all donations to you guys for approval, and the policy just didn't match that, and so that's the change there. CH local, there's a micro purchase threshold. We're not actually eligible for that right now because of the ESSER funds. The amount of ESSER funds we got put us as a high risk, and so we're not even eligible to reduce our micro threshold. Sometime in the future, we'll probably come to you and say, let's reduce the micro threshold. It changes from whether or not you have to get bids to whether you can just get quotes. And the state law says that that we can ask to reduce it, or right now it's at 50,000. I think you can go up to 150,000. I'm not even sure we actually will, but this just matches state law. DBA local is the one that I am going to recommend that you do not approve at this time. Nope, I'm wrong. I thought it was. DBA local just adds a reference to another policy. I don't even actually see a change to DCE local. It's in there, but I don't, there's nothing highlighted that's changed in it. DEA local has, and I'm not sure, I can't tell you why this change was made, but I think, actually now, I think that she said for legal reasons we need to do it this way. If you remember when COVID happened, we did premium pay for those who had to work during COVID. We did it by a board resolution. The TASB consultant said that that's kind of iffy, that they would recommend that we just put it in policy if we have a natural disaster and people have to work during that natural disaster, that they just get premium pay. And it's not done by board resolution. DEC local. It removed discretionary use of state personal leave shall not exceed 3 consecutive workdays. Well, the way we do it is that if they are going to be gone for more than 3 workdays, they have to ask the superintendent for permission. But if the superintendent says yes, then they are gone for more than 3 days. Well, this says no, you can't be. So if you have, I don't know, death of somebody and you're going to be gone for a week, this policy would say no, you can't.
This is the one that we don't want to do.
No, I would recommend you do this because it follows what we actually do. The problem is the one that we're not going to want to do is the one about District of Innovation because we're going to have to end up changing.
So if somebody has a death in the family, then they have to be gone for a week, they can take off the 5 days.
Well, if you left it as was, they couldn't take off the 5 days.
Okay, never mind.
By doing this, it removes, and we haven't been doing that. We've allowed people to be gone if there was some, they just have to send the superintendent a request saying, hey, I'm going to take more than 3 personal days, and the superintendent looks at the request and says, okay, is this a valid reason, or, and so we've been allowing them to take more than 3 days, so our practice didn't match our policy.
Okay.
Now, I don't know that happens very often, but it does happen occasionally. And then DEC local continued. This was with FMLA. This matches the law for FMLA for spouses. Well, sort of. We had an option. We would, if we did it the way that it was currently in policy, it actually penalized spouses, and by this way, it allows spouses to actually take concurrent FMLA. So this was a TASB recommendation on this one. DEE local, they added an exception. So it just says that because when we go out of town, so say we go to Dallas for something, we give a per diem basis, you get X number for dinner, X number for breakfast and stuff like that. And if it's not a federal fund, just says it doesn't require a receipt. And that's the way we've actually been doing it for years. Only federal funds do we require that you don't get a per diem. You just have to, the exact amount that you spend. DGBA local. Just added a couple of words. Once again, a TASB recommendation, I think, unless there's something lower. I didn't notice anything earlier when I went through it. Oh, there is on the written response shall be set forth on the basis of the decision. You're going to see that on a lot of the policies. Anytime there's a level 2 or any level 3 hearings that you guys have to, she's recommended that we add into the policy that there will be a written response that sets forth the basis of the decision. She said just to make sure that we're always consistent. So that way you don't, sometimes you have the level 2 hearing where you tell them why you decided, and then some other times you don't, because as the policy was currently written, there was no, you must do it this way. And she said it would be better for you all to have this in there so that you're always consistent on how you handled it. And there's going to be several other policies where you'll see that exact same word change. DK local. Let's see. They added a reference and then what was it? They struck out a paragraph. Student. I'm not certain why they struck that out. I will tell you that it probably deals with the one thing that I was going to recommend, because it deals with the DOI, because that's the only way you can hire a teacher without the SBAC certification. So you might want to, DK might be one that you might want to hold off on it approving as well. Because, like I said, the District of Innovation Plan is having to change, so he'll be bringing that to you, I believe, next month. DNA local, they added a bunch about how the appraisals work. This matches how we do our T-tests and matches law. EB local. There were some changes in there to law that she said that we needed to incorporate about when we could start and when we could, how long we could go. Which, if we ever go to the, what was it?
July 4th.
Yeah, July 4th, then.
Fourth Friday in July.
Yeah, I'm yeah. We'll all be without a check. EIC local, just added exclusions because the students in credit recovery, those classes don't get counted towards GPA. And then in the case of a tie, this was a discussion that the principals and the consultant had. In case of a tie of weighted GPAs after the 4th decimal place, that will just recognize it as a tie instead of going to tiebreakers. After they calculate the GPAs, I hand validate all of them. And since I've been here, there's never been one that's even been close to the 4th decimal place tie. So it is theoretically possible, but once you're getting down that small, they're virtually the same GPA. FDA local is actually one that I do think you should do. This just says the District of Innovation Plan about allowing transfers or not. So that one is still going to stay, and I recommend you adopt it. FEC local. That's another one that, unless I'm missing it, I don't even see a change in it. Oh wait, there it is. Gives students, in our current policy, they had 30 days after the end of classes to petition for a attendance committee. 30 days is half the summer. So the administrators requested that go down to 5 days. So. FEF local. Is a policy they want to delete. And I don't remember the details on this one. So, sorry. can't tell you much on why she wants to delete that one. I just don't know on that one. FFA local is a wellness policy that is, I believe the whole policy is new. It's a proposed policy. So it's just about the SHAC committee and their wellness goals and stuff like that. FM local. So it removes the limit on participation of extracurricular activities. And the current policy limits them to 15 days, and the new revised policy would remove that limit. FMG local is another delete policy. And once again, I don't remember exactly why. I do know we discussed this because we don't follow it necessarily. It says you must use district transportation to and from events. We allow students to go home with parents, don't we? Yeah.
From extracurricular events?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got the policy pulled up if you want me to read it verbatim.
Well, not in your policy, but, or actually, maybe that's what it was. That she said that this should be in an extracurricular policy, not in a school board policy.
Perfect.
FNA local, FNAA local. I can't remember. This just changes it's principal instead of superintendent on these literature approvals. The first step of the approval anyway. FNAB local. Just changes that to the superintendent develops the guidelines on what announcements can be shared. FNCE local says that we won't charge a fee for the release of personal telecommunications devices, and then changes the language of that. And then changes electronic devices instead of personal devices. Then FOCA local is an addition policy, and that just makes, we do have in our District of Innovation Plan that we don't have to have a certified teacher as our DAEP teacher. GF local. Once again, this is going to be one of those ones that adds the wording of that I talked about earlier about that the written response shall be set forth, just so that we can be consistent. GKD local. This is changes to do for legal reasons, I believe. And then she struck some for-profit things. Like, for example, remember once we had a funeral in the gym, and she said the way our policy was currently written, you couldn't allow that. And then also, the way the policy was currently written, like the public forum that Tara has, couldn't be hosted here. So that's what some of the changes in this policy are for. She did add e-cigarettes as to the use of tobacco products as well. And changed the word schools to district law. I thought there was another policy that, I guess it was just the DK local is the one I recommend that you don't adopt. Are there any questions on any of those that hopefully I or someone in the
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Don't butcher it. I move that the board add, revise, and delete local policies in accordance with the proposed changes resulting from the policy review session conducted on November 9th, 10th, 2022, with the exception of DK local.
Okay, I have a motion by Doug, do I have a second? Second. Second by Mike. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed, motion carries.
that was the
All right. Now, let's talk about House Bill 3.
now we begin.
Kim?
Alrighty. So, our House Bill 3 goals were set up back when Edie was here, how many years ago that's been. And in between that time and now, we've had COVID and we've had all sorts of things, so they need to be revised. And they technically are supposed to be revised every year anyway. We're supposed to review them with you guys. So when you look, the first page of the data is all about reading. And the numbers that are just in black with no red written by them are actual numbers that we had. So those are the actual figures from the STAR scores or whatever test was given. And so on the reading goal, we had projected that we would go up by 4% each year and end at a 60% passing rate. This is third grade reading. So when you look at 2019, we had 37, 2020 we had 41. Well, then in 2021, we went back down to 35%, probably because of the COVID years. And then when we got our scores for 21-22, we actually hit 62%. So we went above and beyond at the elementary school and third grade reading for that percentage. So what I did was I just kept that 62% as a starting point and then kept the goal the same as increasing up by 4 percentage points each time. So we'll end up at a 74% by 2025. So that's just a projection for us. Down below that is broken up into the same type of thing, but by the groups that we are targeting, the special populations. And so that's where the reds are where we're at currently for the 2022 year. And so then I've just increased those by 4% as a goal for us to hit. And then pre-K kinder, first and second, they don't have a STAR measure, but we still have to have a measure to track their literacy scores. And so we did the same information. We have pre-K, which has a test called GOLD. Kinder uses CLI, and then first and second grade use NWA MAP. And so I've added the scores in. 2022, when I went to pull the data from last year, the company for GOLD doesn't store the data, so I couldn't pull the numbers for last year. So I went ahead and put the numbers they've already tested this year for pre-K, and they're at 88%, so I just went ahead and made that be a starting number for pre-K. Same thing for CLI for kindergarten. 76% is where I have, and then I was able to go back for first and second grade, set their starting point, and then increase the goals for those. And then the next page is math. It's done exactly the same way. It's just the current projections, where we're at, where we need to be. Math is our weakest area, I think, across the board right now, and so that's where we're really trying to focus. I think we're going to be, we're increasing some of the scores. Gina had some stuff. Actually, I've got some stuff in my board report about math, how we're doing currently too. So those are the goals for math. And then the next page is our CCMR data, college career military readiness data. And this data actually lags a year, so our data is always a year behind for CCMR. And so I took what we had and made some projections for those also. That includes TSI testing and ACT testing and military. One thing that we're a little frustrated about is the military. We don't get the numbers in there currently because the DOJ won't release those numbers. They've come up with a new form that's supposedly going to work, but it's a year lag, and we have to submit documents to the not DOJ, but DOE, that's the right one. So hopefully we'll start getting some of that, because we have several kids that do enlist in the military, and we feel like we should get credit for that. How many was it last year we didn't get credit for?
It's like 3 or 4.
Yeah, and so that's a decent percentage, so that will help our numbers as well. And then TSI criteria is the bottom section, and we did not have any data initially because they had just started that. And so this is the data. We actually got some data just recently, so that's where I've started with those projections. And I think that's, and then the last page is just explaining about why we have the goals and what they are.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Kim? No? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the HB3 goals as presented.
A motion by Chad, a second.
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Okay, let's go to campus reports, and we'll start with Mrs. Carr.
So the picture on the front page of mine is from when our GT students took a trip to Oklahoma City. The high school and the junior high GT students went together in the middle of December to Oklahoma City to an indoor skydiving facility, and I have a little bit more pictures about that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the report, but they really had a good time with that. So just the news, of course, we did the GT trip. Our UIL competed on December 9th, and in December our student council collected and donated quite a bit of wrapping paper to CCS to help them with their wrapping of their angel tree presents. Upcoming events. This weekend, junior high BPA is going to be competing in the regional conference, which is actually going to be hosted here in Fritch. The high school and the junior high will do both of those together. And then we have basketball. One thing that I wanted to tell you all about that I didn't get put on here before I had to turn this in was that next week on Thursday, on January 26th, we're having an 8th grade parent night, which is something I don't think the junior high has done in the past, where 8th grade parents can come up. We're going to have the high school counselor there and our counselor there, just so they can talk about, picking because we're about to start picking schedules for the next year, so they can, the parents have a chance to actually talk to the high school counselor and find out exactly, what goes into high school classes and credits and all that kind of stuff. And then we have more basketball, and then on February 8th, our student council will be going to student council convention. The next page is just our attendance. So the third 6 weeks went down just a little bit. I think before Christmas we had kind of like a flu going around or something. We had quite a bit of students absent, but it was at 94%. And then for our year to date is at 95%. The next couple of pages is just a bunch of data. Most of it is all semester test data from before Christmas break. Just gives you an idea. The first page there is 6th grade information. So you have 6th grade reading and 6th grade math there on that page. The next page is some 7th grade data. So you have 7th grade reading and 7th grade math there. And then you have some 8th grade information on the next page, 8th grade reading and 8th grade math. And then the last one there with the data is 8th grade science and then 8th grade social studies, because those are also STAR tested subjects at the junior high. The next page is just that whole list of all the kids that competed. So that gives you an idea of everybody that competed, and then the ones highlighted in yellow are the ones that placed at the meet. And just the last couple of pages are just some pictures. So the 8th grade class was the class that collected the most wrapping paper for CCS. So that's a picture of Miss Robinson's classroom. She had a donut party for the entire 8th grade class in there. And the last page was the skydiving that we went to do. There's a couple of kids' pictures there of them skydiving. Also, when the kids were there, they had to do that bottom right picture. They had to do like a little class where they gave them a bunch of different balls, and they had to calculate how, like, the wind speed of the, like, based on the weight and the size of the ball, and what kind of wind speed it would need in the tunnel to fly. And so, and then at the end of it, they tested the balls in the tunnel, and they got to see if they did their calculations correct. So they got a little bit of math in there after they did their skydiving. The kids really liked the skydiving. They thought it was a lot of fun.
Looks like fun.
Me and Tim and I also went, and we really liked it.
Y'all did it too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun. All right. Mr. Vanderpool.
Whenever you're ready, Felix. Mine's not as long. I will start with, I did not put any attendance figures because not much changed for me over from Christmas break to now. And I didn't want to bore you with 1 week's worth of attendance data. You're going to see a lot of campus pictures from classrooms that I gathered over that week. Kids are we're easing back into everything, but they're back in their flow and they're ready to go now. Teachers were saying yesterday was a little crazy, but I think that was the weather, because I talked to Mrs. Ross and her little girl was just as crazy as my son was at the house, so I think it was the weather. Girls started basketball district in Sunray before I got this done. The boys had not quite started, so there weren't any pictures of them. Felix, next slide, please. Some more classroom photos. There's Mrs. Price. You've got the art room in the back on the right-hand side in the back, and then Mrs. Charlton's Spanish class, which works through a virtual classroom with a teacher that used to work in Panhandle who's now based out of Dallas. Mrs. Price's class is always interesting to go into because they'll always talk to you and they'll tell you what you're doing, and the girls always seem to like to pose for photos. The boys not so much. Riley Sands is in the left photo, but he's got his back to us because he didn't want to turn around. So, and she's doing a bang-up job with that. The Child Development Associates. She's doing a really good job with that one. And they're going to the elementary in the mornings, I believe, some days, 2 days out of the week, I think, maybe 3. Next slide, please, Felix. U.S. history data, I pulled this one. I pulled a variety of data sources over the semester so that y'all could kind of see where everything's at. I may have shown this to you before, but it did not have the STAR performance standards. This is actually Mr. Hale's November test. It was beginning, middle of November, and I put the STAR performance standards in there, which is the second circle graph, and you can see that the majority, he did not have any students who were below standard, below approaches. He had 2 that were approaches, 1 that meets, and on that particular test, he got 32 kids master, which he does a good job. Next slide, Felix, please. English 1, I pulled some of Miss Sylvie's data, and once again, she did a good job of putting in her STAR performance standards, so that's that second bar graph. On this particular test, only 2 kids were below the the approaches standard, which we're still working, moving from that approaches to the meets. So really, when I did this, I wanted y'all to see we're right on track to where we need to be. When I talked to the teachers at the beginning of the year, I wanted everybody to be, you know, our focus was meets, and that's something Mrs. Carr, Mrs. Searles, Mrs. McCown, we'd all talked about. We got to move from that approaches to the meets, because approaches doesn't really do us any good because everybody's approaching. But if we can hit that meets, then everything will be solid. Next slide, please, viewers. And then that is English 2 data. I pulled from I believe this was a second 6 weeks poetry unit, so this was in October. So you have the October results, and I left the results from December, which was the November interim, so that you could see that not much has changed. They're growing, or you might have seen a little bit of regression, but the kids are right where they need to be. And then next slide. I left the Algebra 1 data in there in case you wanted to look at it again. Nothing changed on that. And part of the reason I didn't have a DMAC test on this is because Mrs. Rice was actually putting her data into TFAR, and I can't pull that, but she can. So, next slide. Activities, you've got basketball, and I didn't want to go too far into February or March, but that gets us through the majority of basketball right there. Both teams competitive for a playoff spot right now. Golf's getting ready to start up, as I think y'all just got the baseball and softball schedules, so those are complete. We're getting ready to start that. The Red River Classic for the academic UIL is actually now a Stinnett meet. Stinnett had moved their meet, and then Mrs. Walker decided to go to Texas Tech, and then Stinnett moved their meet again, so it was, and I think some of the track kids are going to the Texas Tech meet this weekend, is that correct?
Got a handful.
Handful of them. So some of those kids are going to track, and then she wanted to go to Stinnett. So by the time I'd actually given this to Mr. Garrison, we had switched back to Stinnett. Basketball and band pictures, January 31st. We have our biology interim assessment on Valentine's Day, which I'm sure the kids will love. And our U.S. history interim assessment, February 15th. I'm hoping maybe we can get a couple more interims in on all core subjects, all those EOCs, so that we'll have a pretty good idea of where these kids are going to sit going into state testing, which will be English is in April and everything else is in May.
Good. Anybody got any questions? Mr. Williams?
So basketball started district play whenever I submitted the report. It was last Thursday, so updates from there. The girls are currently 1-3 after last night, but still definitely in the hunt for the playoffs. The boys are actually 1-1 in district, and they're sitting fine. The beautiful thing about it is we're early and we still control our own destiny. We've just got to go play. This is a crazy time of year because of transition time, and so you've got a lot of sports that are just now starting up and basketball finishing. So it's a crazy, a lot of moving parts and kids going every direction, and this is where it gets really critical for our kids to stay on top of the classroom because they are missing a lot of school if they're multiple sport athletes. If you'll notice here, the first available date, this is set by UIL, for a softball scrimmage is on the 28th. If you look at your softball schedule I handed y'all, that is our first scrimmage, and we are actually going to be in Plainview, scrimmaging Dumas and Plainview. That's for softball. The first available date for a softball game is actually February 13th, so you've got a 2-week span there between the scrimmage and the first game. The first scrimmage that you can officially start for baseball is on February 4th. And make sure I'm not telling you anything wrong. Our first scrimmage actually isn't till the 11th. So you've got a window of when you can scrimmage. Our first one's the 11th at Health Center. The first game's available is on the 20th. We are playing Memphis on the 21st, and it's here. Last year we went down there in a windstorm. I think Logan remembers that. It was cold. But they're coming up here, so it'll be a little bit less on travel there. Just so you know, track does not have an actual official start or end date on UIL. You can do track year-round. You can actually have track practice year-round. They don't regulate it. And so we've been running. And so Mr. Vanderpool alluded, we are taking a handful of boys and girls this weekend to Texas Tech's indoor meet. We've done that in the past. I know that Coach Moose had his daughter that was a good hurdler that he took down there. And so we've got some kids last year that advanced to regionals that want to get a go on it that are not in basketball right now. And so we're taking some kids down there this Friday for some prelims and then Saturday. And so it's just a handful of boys and I think there's 4 girls that are going and competing down there this weekend. I'm sure I'm giving you everything. Pantex relays. Before the meeting, I kind of alluded to this. It's actually 3 dates. In the last 2 years, it's actually been a 3-date meet. And what started that whole thing was COVID. When COVID hit, they put out all these regulations on track meets because they didn't want a lot of mass population meeting together at one venue. So COVID allowed for X number of schools as long as you broke it up into certain divisions. So when we started this 3-day meet, it was kind of COVID driven because of limiting numbers. Well, we only invited 5 teams because that was what the restrictions were on COVID back then, 2 or 3 years ago. Well, it went off so well and the schools liked it so well that we added teams, ultimately 14 teams, and which generates a lot of revenue for our entry fees because it's cash off the book entry fees for each school. And so it's a substantial amount of money. But in order to be able to run it efficiently and get kids home at a decent hour, we had to break especially the junior high into 2 dates. UIL does not allow you to compete at the junior high level until the end of the school day. And then you must be off of the athletic competitive floor or track or field by 10 p.m. if it's during the week. So that's why we broke it up so that we could ensure that we were done in time. And then if you look at the pictures through there, the Booster Club last fall donated a Ease Up 10. It's massive. And it's got a fully wraparound front, but when we went to regionals last year with the track team, and even since we've added cross country, several schools, in fact 90% of the schools have something, and it's a pride thing, but have something like this for the kids to camp out in. And I know one thing, our kids were very appreciative of it. I did take a picture of it with the kids underneath it and sent it to Ms. Huff, and so it's been in the paper, but I just wanted to give y'all a color picture of what they actually did for us, and we're very thankful of the Booster Club for that. And then, of course, there's just a few photos of what's going on in basketball right now. The next thing I was going to talk about is we've updated our athletic policy. We felt like our athletes needed to be held to a higher standard. And so ultimately, Mr. Garrison and I sit down, we put our heads together. I got some feedback from coaches, and we wanted to put in a discipline matrix so that it could be implemented year-round. And the punishment or discipline that we apply is something that could be done no matter what sport's going on. So every coach is on the same page, and everybody is holding kids accountable in every sport, regardless of who the head coach is. And so when Mr. Garrison and I came up here with it, we used to use sled pushes as the punishment. And so in the summer, kids would come up and do sled pushes for fitness and for training. And so we reverted back to halos, which is kind of a Coach Ware, Coach Moose deal, and which I love it. And so now they're not dreading the sled pushes as punishment in the summer whenever they come up here and then we work them out. They can actually utilize that as true. We're trying to develop their lower body, but the halos, the kids don't like them. And so we came up with an objective amount and then a classification, if you can look at the discipline matrix that Mr. Garrison shared with you. And so ultimately, when we meet with our coaching staff, we get everybody on the same page, and a halo can be done outside on the football field, but it's ultimately 100 yards down and back. And some of y'all have probably been guilty of having to do some of those back in the day. So, but you know, if the weather's bad, you know, we can still calculate the same quantity. I think it's 6 trips in the court, and you can do it the same way in the basketball court. So we can make it work year round, and I feel like this is something we can implement year round. And ultimately, it gives us basically a framework to work as a whole staff to communicate with teachers. So if a kid is not taking care of business in the classroom, we've got a category where we can put it in there and then, hey, young man, this is where it's at. And then the kids are fully on board. They know exactly what they're fixing to face if they mess up. And so it's just a great organizational tool, and I think that it's going to help us going forward. But that's the major changes that we did. There was a couple other changes that I did to the actual athletic policy, and they were very minor. But one of them alluded to, it was basically attendance, and the way the athletic policy was worded before, it was if a student misses, regardless of whether it's excused or unexcused, a practice, they will not start in the game. And we came up with a situation this year where we had actually 11 healthy bodies in 8th grade playing football. And one of them literally truly was sick on Monday, called and communicated. Well, had we not went ahead and played that game, I actually made the coach's discretion. Had we not played that game, we'd have had to forfeit the whole game. I just wanted those kids to participate, so it wasn't really fair to the other 10. So I rephrased it to should not expect to start, and playing time will be determined by the coach based on the reasons for the absence and so forth. But it was, instead of handcuffing us to you will not, I just verbalized that to where we would have some discretion there, so that it doesn't punish the rest of them if we're limited on numbers. Have no problem if we've got the numbers to start somebody else in that kid's spot, but when you're dealing with exactly enough to start the game, I'd much rather be able to play it than forfeit it and not let the other 10 play. But that was the main differences that we did in the athletic policy.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions going forward?
Are you gonna resend this out?
Yes, sir, and I was going to, just so you know, I was going to, after we approve and after y'all see this and go through this, I was going to go ahead and print these tomorrow and get it started immediately. There's no reason to wait. And so we'll implement this tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. More questions? Okay, Ms. Searles?
All right. I threw in our elementary school, since we were talking about House Bill 3 goals and math and literacy, some of the data that supports all of that. The first one, first page is the math, and it's the blue is this test that they took at the beginning of the school year, and then the gray is the winter scores and that they took right before Christmas. And so every grade level has increased their data. You know, some of them not as much as others, but there are increases all along. And the chart right below that, the blue line, is the median score. We're at or above the median score for every one of these growth measures for math. So that shows me that we're doing what we need to do and we're where we should be and for math. And then the next page is the reading, same thing. Kindergarten doesn't take reading, but we probably are looking at changing that next year to help with some of our teacher incentive allotment data that we're going to need. But kindergarten uses a different measure right now for reading data. I just didn't add that. But same thing goes for reading. All the scores we've increased in every grade level, and we're at or above the median number for reading as well, or NWEA. So they're doing some good things down there. The other thing, and I think the House Bill goals too, are focus on reading math because they set the foundation for everything that happens in every class, you know, going forward. So that's why I think there's such a stress to reading and math at elementary level. And then the last page is just some things that I've been working on, of course, mostly just teacher incentive allotment and data gathering. We got our TAPER report, all the official report, and so I've started collecting data for that, and I believe that we're going to present that to you guys next board meeting, so you see what all star scores, every subject, every grade, more in depth next board report.
Probably can't help with math anymore. Oh my God.
What grade is that?
One student, that's all I have.
Math is not just math anymore.
No, it's not. Okay, Mr. Hines.
Okay, listening, heard, and being prepared. I didn't really have anything specific on my report to point out. first thing I want to say, it is School Board Appreciation Month. We do appreciate everything that y'all do. I know the pay is great for doing this, so we really do appreciate all the time and effort that you guys put in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the goodies.
Yep, thanks.
Snowman and all of our stuff was really cool.
Rusty missed it. Sorry, Rusty.
We'll split Rusty's.
The other thing I have, a couple things. The walls are finished at the two campuses, and the window that we were gonna put in. So, I mean, if you stop by and look at them, I actually was pretty happy with the construction. They did a really good job. So it's Boomtown Constructions who did it for us. I'll shout out to them because I really thought they did a good job for a really good price for us. The other thing is the legislature is in session. So you'll hear me talking about legislative stuff probably for the rest of this semester. The early indications are that they plan every different department, whether it be the governor, lieutenant governor, the commissioner, Senate, House, they all agree that it's time for another increase in the basic allotment. If you remember the last time they did an increase in the basic allotment, that's when we did the $5,000 raises for teachers. They're talking about doing something similar again, where they increase our money, but designate that 85% of it go to teacher raises. Now, I can't guarantee that, so don't take that to absolute heart, but that's what they're indicating, is that they want to raise funding, but they want most of it to go to teacher salaries again. So we'll see. It's easy to talk, and we'll see what they actually come up with. Obviously security is a big thing for them, so they're throwing all kinds of numbers around about how they're going to increase the security funding. There is a big one that you guys need to pay attention to. Well, you need to pay attention to all of it, but you need to focus on is one of the things that the governor and the lieutenant governor both are pushing for is a legislation to make it so that you can't use any public funds for lobbying efforts. And the reason that that's significant for y'all is because TASB talks to the legislature. Well, if it went through, TASB would either have to stop representing us down at the legislature, or we would have to stop paying TASB fees, which we can't. I mean, we get a lot from TASB. I mean, that'd be hard for us to do. That really affects us in the Panhandle because we don't have a voice down in Austin. Our voice is our organizations, TASB, the Equity Center, TASA. So and it's everybody's projecting it will pass this year. So if you do happen to write a letter to your legislature, and I would recommend you do, I do every single session to highlight these are what I think you guys should look at. That would be something I would talk to them about, is that, those organizations give us a voice and we don't have a voice without them. So we'll keep an eye on the legislature and we'll try to point out anything that we think if there's an action item that you guys need to call. And I'll tell you right now, those legislators, when I call as a business manager, they're like, okay, cool. When you call as a board member, like, oh, hey, let me listen. Your voice does carry some weight to them. So you contacting them does make a difference. And that's what they tell me. Now, reality, I don't know, but that's what they say, is that you guys, they love to hear from you and your voice does make a difference.
They did tell me, well, one of the guys there, whenever I called, he told me a phone call is just the same thing as a letter. They count them, they just look and see what you have to say, and they mark that on their paper as what you do in the telephone. So if you call them and talk to them, you need their numbers, I've got them, so that you can call and talk to either of them.
I emailed Ford Price about something, so if you would like to have my email, that way you can call and add into that, about House Bill 4545. All our teachers would love for you to voice opinions about that as well.
Yes, that is true. The one thing in my actual financial report that I'll point out is on the summary. You'll notice we went down just a little bit once again on enrollments. Adding that graph at the bottom lets you see, or ADA, not enrollment, that it's just a pretty steady decline from the start of the year to the end of the year. So,
Just like that last year, though, didn't
well, it's that way every
Somewhat.
year. Typically, in the past, it would kind of level off during Christmas, and then it would start declining again towards the end of the year. But I can't remember who said it, but we had a bunch of sickness right before Christmas, and so it kept declining because of attendance. I expect it really to level off a little bit for a month or two, and then it'll decline a little bit more as you get into the later summer months, or spring months, I should say. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't know what all Jason had to add besides just the calendar, so do you know of anything that he had to add?
He did not mention anything to me that specifically mentioned to you guys.
Okay. All right, let's set our date for the next meeting. So Wednesday's still good for everybody? The only day that you have open? Okay.
We can add an extra day to the week.
You would just fill it up with some.
Probably,
Yeah.
That's true.
right now it'd be basketball.
So do y'all want to do the 8th or the 15th?
First or the 15th, depending on when I'll be here in time.
Okay. Anybody else?
15th this week.
Let's do the 15th. Okay. And next, we will go into closed session at, we'll say 7:10.
What would it be?
And I've got to look here.
Revised it.
Yeah, revised contract for the whatever years.
It's his turn.
Current.
It's a 2023, 2024. Is that
That
right?
was his term. We're just revising.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not doing a new one then?
No.
Okay, then,
Yeah, you would do it. Yeah. Well, you up it 2022, 20. It'd be 23, 24, right? Is that right, Stacy? 23, 24? Because it'd be the next year. Yes, 23, 2023, 2024 school year.
I thought it was 2 years out of 3 years out. Why didn't you do this for me live? Because I'm thinking, you put me on the spot. Because it's,
It's a 2-year.
well, it was on the first rating. Look at it. Go back to the very first and look at the first rating and see. Yeah, we'll get it together.
Maybe.
Hold on just a minute.
it's true, it wasn't a disclosure.
It was, so go to the disclosure and look at that, and let's add 1 year to it. Okay, so it says, it ends June 30th, 2024, so we need to do it through 2025.
So 24, 25.
Yes.
Okay.
I move to
Wait,
approve.
you gotta call you back into session.
All right, Mr. Hine, will you call us back into session at 7:16? And, Doug, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the superintendent's revised contract through the year 2024, 2025 as.
We have a motion by Doug, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Logan, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed, motion carries. I'll make a motion.
Wait, let me get the wording. I move to approve the superintendent's revised contract.
3 years, his term through 24 to 25.
As presented.
Okay.
Okay. Good. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:17.
I second.
Second by Stacy, all in favor? All in favor, none opposed, motion carries. We are.
Who seconded the motion for the contract?
Logan.